Welcome to Once Upon a Castle, unlocking the magic of Disney, past and present. I'm Ginny, your guide through the parks and the pages of Disney's rich history. Each week, we will share expert tips to help you plan your perfect visit and explore the stories, secrets, and legends that make the magic real. From Walt's vision to today's hidden gems, we will help you feel more connected, more prepared, and more enchanted every step of the way. So, whether you're counting down the days to your next trip or just dreaming of a stroll down Main Street, USA, this is your place to discover the wonder. This is Once Upon a Castle. Welcome back to Once Upon a Castle podcast, the show where we take a stroll down the avenues, attractions, and stories that make Disneyland more than just a park. It's a living, breathing piece of American imagination. All right, my friends, we have a very special guest joining us, someone who is not only an incredible Disney historian and storyteller, but one who has been one of the kindest and most generous supporters of this little podcast very early on. Michael Holland is the author of The Year Before Disneyland, a book that takes us inside one of the most extraordinary 12 months in Disney's entire history. July 1954 to July 1955, when Walt, Roy, and a team of absolutely brilliant people didn't just build a park. Michael is also the host of the wonderful From Out of the Past podcast over at Holland Imaginarium, where he shares what he lovingly calls the stories beside the story. Those rich, beautiful, often overlooked pieces of Disney history that make you fall in love with this whole world all over again. So today we are digging into the book. We're going to talk all about his love of Disneyland. We're going to hear how all this history shapes the way he experiences the parks today, and he might even share some of his tips for how you can get more out of your next visit. I cannot wait for you to hear this conversation. So grab some popcorn from Main Street, get cozy, and let's welcome Michael Holland to Once Upon a Castle. Welcome, Michael.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting because I genuinely am a fan of this show. So thank you.
Wow, that is awesome. I feel very blessed and honored. And I've been a fan of yours, following you on socials. Your season 2 from Out of the Past podcast is just absolutely superb. The book, amazing. Just so many wonderful things. So I feel so lucky for myself and definitely listeners to get to talk to you. So they are in for a real treat today.
Thank you. And you're hired to introduce me wherever I go.
Wonderful. I have a steep fee. Annual passes.
You got to just announce that when I go to the supermarket.
That's great. Amazing. Yeah. That's the way we should all be living life.
Yeah.
Okay, so Michael, let's jump in a little bit. Let's get to know you and a little bit more about what you do. So tell us about, one, who you are and what you do over at Holland Imaginarium, and really how has Disney become such a central part of your life?
Wow. I mean, that's a wonderful question. And I hope you have 8 or 10 hours.
We sure do.
Yeah. The short answer is I grew up in classic Hollywood. My mom and dad were big classic Hollywood fans. So growing up, around the house and whatnot, it was very much, the movies and TV shows and old radio shows of, say, the 1930s to the 1960s. I listened to a great deal of big band and jazz and standards long before regular quote unquote modern pop music. It was really kind of, and not in a bad way at all. Even then, even I was very conscious of it, but growing up in sort of the golden age of Hollywood, even though it was the 1980s.
Mhm.
And um, I just found a similar passion for it quite naturally, and from then to this day, and am still a great fan of the golden age of Hollywood, and not just enjoying it, but eventually coming to study it and learn as much as I can about it, including what I sometimes refer to as the facts versus truths of old Hollywood, because we have a great deal of facts,
Mhm.
and we also don't. There's sort of a an old adage that the fan of something is going to know a great deal more about
Mm. Mhm.
art than anybody that works on it. I mean, from Mozart to Baryshnikov to pick any artist, any field,
Mhm.
they will throw away their sketches and throw away their rough drafts and not record the unfinished symphony and
Yeah.
whatnot. So we don't have as much as we have today a journal of the golden age of Hollywood. It's all secondhand um, references, and I'm not saying that they aren't true, but I think aside from anything that's truly in an archive, if we have an actual call sheet from a given movie, let's
Mhm.
say, we can obviously trust that. That's a document. But we
Right.
have we have very, very few of those. We have very, very few actual journals. We have very few, I mean, if we come across a blooper of of an old Hollywood movie, it's extremely rare
Hmm.
because it's not that they didn't happen, but they would have just discarded that film.
Right.
So I love this archaeological dig that we still make about a great many things about old Hollywood. And I call it like the facts versus truths because I tell a story of, oh, we went to dinner and we went to McDonald's, and that's when she pitched the movie to me.
Mhm.
And you tell the story and you say, oh yeah, we went to lunch and we went to Carl's Jr. and that's when I pitched the movie to him. And a
Mm.
third part, and you kind of see the similarities, and you kind of start to say, oh, okay,
Mhm.
some of these facts I can disregard in a sense, because the truth of the matter is that she and he had a meal together and she pitched him this film idea.
Uh-huh.
And so there's a part of me, and this translates right into Disney, um, of going back through the facts of what we know happened, what we think happened, and then kind of the truth of it, and the truth of who sketched what, or who built
Mm.
what, or was this model built for that, or when was this song written, or by whom, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things that I have really begun to champion, and it really came out of the year before Disneyland, was the idea of, not the idea, the truth of how much Roy really was responsible, um, as much as Walt was. And I'm not taking anything away from Walt at all. I mean, he was literally a legend in his own time. He deserves the genius status. He deserves all of the accolades we give him. But Disney as a company, and particularly Disneyland, as much as any of its product, was the product of two brothers,
Yeah.
um, that were working just as much creatively and just as much from a business aspect as the other, and that's what's continued to be fun through the podcast and through any number of books, or any number of continued deep dives into the subject of old Hollywood and or Disney, is that archaeological dig, and finding the next truth among the lovable dust.
Mhm. Gosh, that's really interesting, and, like, it has me thinking, about the roles that Walt and Roy played and how instrumental both of those were. So, what might be your thoughts around why is it that Walt became more of that figurehead and stood out more and is, a bit more remembered and known? Like, I'd love to know your
Oh,
thoughts.
sure.
Like, do you think it's around it comes down to, like, personality type? Like, was it that
Sure.
Roy was just more reserved and quiet and, like, okay with being in the background, and Walt was very, um, you know, I don't wanna say showboaty, right? But he had no problem being out in the public and speaking and was very social. Like, what are your thoughts around why was it Walt that gets more recognition?
I mean, I think you nailed it. Yes, he
Mm,
was certainly that type of personality, and Roy was not. And we think of it always saying Walt Disney's,
sure.
fill in the blank right after that. And he definitely was the storyteller of the two,
Mhm.
um, and enjoyed it. We know that, as early as Snow White, at almost the drop of a hat, he would just perform the entire movie
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
for bankers. He didn't, he really loved it. And then to kind of answer the first part of your question is the theater going public. I mean, aside from it saying Walt Disney's and it being like a Walt Disney production, and his certainly was the name on
Mhm.
there. We
Mhm.
know it started as the Disney Brothers studio,
Right, yeah.
but then it was Walt Disney. But then and it's a long time. If you think of like the mid 20s to the mid 50s, that's 30 years
Mhm.
before Walt, gets on TV. But from being on TV once a week on that first TV show, th- then he was literally in the theater going public's living room,
Mm, mhm.
and he was very much welcomed into their living room, and he got to be known by millions of people that had never met him as Uncle Walt.
Mhm, mhm.
And he literally became the face. Not that he wasn't before, certainly, but to the millions of fans, he became the face of the company
Mm.
and was Uncle Walt.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Man, I just would have loved to have been a fly on the wall just watching their relationship and dynamic over the years and, being business partners, which can be a very strenuous at times, right? And hamper relationships. And then also being siblings, which is also can be strenuous at times, just how that was.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it was Bob. I hope I'm giving the right credit. I think it was Bob Thomas, who's an incredible Disney archivist. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, Walt without Roy would have been an animator for, say, Walter Lantz.
mhm,
And Roy without Walt would have been a manager of a Bank of America in Glendale.
mhm.
But the two of them together,
Yeah.
really fed off each other and supported each other, no matter how. And you're absolutely right. It was probably not, icing
Mhm.
24/7.
Right.
There, they had to build the cake too. But
Right.
but they loved each other. I think through it all liked each other, supported each other. And Roy, God bless him, understood how to, you know, let Walt be Walt,
Mhm.
then rein him in, and Walt would listen to Roy
Mhm.
mostly, you know, but but
Yeah,
but
sometimes,
but
yeah, yeah.
yeah, but Roy really knew how to support
Mhm.
Walt and say, yeah, this is that project he kind of needs a blank check for.
Yeah,
And or yeah, this, don't worry, I'll talk to him, this project, I'll rein
right.
him in on it. And or he was much more than just the business end of it. I mean,
Right.
he was a real partner, and that's why I say he doesn't get like the creative, um, you know, applause that he sometimes gets, because no, he didn't write, no, he didn't draw,
Mhm.
but the support factor, and knowing how to coax the best out of Walt, and knowing how much lead to give him, and then
Mhm.
how much to rein him in. There's a thoroughbred, and
Mhm.
there's the jockey. Like,
Mhm.
they they
Mhm.
they they really
Yeah.
work they really work together.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a real art to that, right?
yeah, there really is, and
No
we s
pun intended.
yeah, and we see that, I think,
Mhm.
throughout the, we're famously just came up on, 100 years of the company, 70
Mhm.
years of Disneyland. It's not a small thing.
Right. Right. Yes, especially to create something that's, like you just noted too, so long lasting.
Oh,
Um, Gosh, so let's jump into you a little bit more and thinking about Disneyland specifically because we are a Disneyland podcast. Um,
yeah.
so when did Disneyland itself first enter your life? And do you have like a moment or an experience where you remember it becoming something more than just, yeah, I go here and I visit and it's like a vacation spot. Like you've really you've taken a lot and you've built a career around this company. So when did it first enter your life?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's another great question. I grew up in Los Angeles in the San Fernando Valley, and a family tradition was going to Disneyland every year. And this is back when once a year was a lot for a
Yeah.
lot of people. And my parents always said, whoever sees the Matterhorn first picks the first ride,
Oh, that's cool.
as we were going down the freeway. And I'm not kidding. I started looking for the Matterhorn from our front driveway.
You're like,
Like,
don't
yeah,
blink.
yeah, and that grew to the night before. Knowing you're going to Disneyland was as exciting and stressful as the night before Christmas. And exciting, and then over the years, my own fandom grew, and I began encompassing more of the history and the design aspects and the evolution of the park and the studio, from the cartoon shorts in the 20s to literally a multimedia empire
Hmm.
that never shook having to persevere. But yeah, I think it I know it starts from those first trips with my family, going in the park. It's no secret my favorite attraction is the Jungle Cruise. And I'm 100% certain that's because it was my dad's
Mm.
uh, favorite attraction, and I knew that, and I latched on to that. This is, hindsight 2020, but
Right.
that was much more a foundation even before knowing that it was an original attraction, even before
Hmm.
knowing it was Walt's favorite attraction, even before, like, any that didn't matter. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember, holding my dad's hand and being in line and getting on the boat and going through that attraction with my parents, and, et cetera, et cetera. So there was a real, palpable, visceral, introduction to the magic of the park, um, solely through a child's eyes, which is, I think,
Hmm.
the absolute best way, to put it.
Hmm.
And the best way to experience it. I mean, we can all say, to children of all ages, and I'm, you know, our son is 9, but I mean, I'm 9 when I walk
Hmm.
through the gate,
Hmm.
again, so, but to if you had the opportunity or got the opportunity to first experience Disneyland or Disney World. I mean, if you got to experience to walk into a park as a child when everything worked exactly the way it was supposed to,
Hmm.
the size of things and the characters and the music and the smell of the popcorn and et cetera, et cetera. I think it is, we kind of throw it around a lot now, but it is a core memory.
Mhm.
And then it became a once a year thing until, I was old enough to get tickets, and, you get an annual pass and you go, and then, and I'm so grateful because, again, it was not planned, but I'm grateful that going now, I can still kind of flip my brain to, oh, I need to go, and I need to go look at that or take a photo of that because I want to study it later,
Mhm.
and I want to learn that, or I need to go, ask this question and find this out, whatever. And then I kind of go click, and I go, oh, I'm just walking through,
Yeah.
Adventureland, and I'm with my family, and or I'm just enjoying the queue, or I'm
Mhm.
just enjoying the ride, or I'm just enjoying that scent, or I'm just, and
Right.
I'm so grateful that I can still do that. And I'm so grateful I can do that when watching a movie.
Yeah.
My day job, I still have a day job, is I'm a post-production supervisor for film and TV. And people say, like, "Oh, can you watch a movie?"
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
Like, having, worked on them. And I say, "Oh, absolutely." Especially you know, if it's good. You know,
Right.
I mean, I don't sit there and think about it while I'm enjoying a story. Even if it's something that I've seen 25 times, I can put Wizard of Oz on and just sit and enjoy it,
Mhm. Mhm.
and or I might just be like, "Oh, don't forget to ask about that."
Right,
And then
right.
I go right back into to being a fan, because at
Mhm.
the end of the day, I think that's what fuels the best
Mm.
historians, is if they can continue being a fan of whatever they're working on, or
Mhm.
whatever story behind the story they're trying to tell, or working in archive, or working in journalism, or whatever it is. If you can remain being a fan of it,
Mhm.
then the why you got into it will always be there.
Right.
It will always reinforce your passion for it, and your enjoyment in continuing to just enjoy it, or learn more about it, and or share what you've learned with others.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, that's really good. I mean, that even has me thinking about, my day job, being an educator, and while I'm not, in the classroom anymore with kids, I work more on the adult side, having the opportunity to get in and teach a little bit here and there. Just the other day, I went in and taught a very small lesson in a 3rd grade classroom, and just that 20 minutes was like, it was so good, and reminding myself, not necessarily being a fan, but in some ways of why
Sure.
why I get to do the things that I do, and why I'm passionate about it, and why I'm passionate about helping teachers. But yeah, so that resonates with me a lot, what you just said. So you talked about Jungle Cruise being your favorite ride, and you
Oh,
really
yes.
alluded to, you know, the deep connection that you have with that ride based upon, your relationship with your dad. But is
Yeah.
there like any specific part of the ride, whether it's all the way from the queue, the moment you enter the queue to the very end, is there like any specific part that hits deeper for you?
Well, I mean, this obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, but it will be obvious soon. It goes back to my being a fan of the golden age of Hollywood. So I
Mm,
I I love the music in the queue. I
yeah.
love, I love that it's now set in the 30s. I love that it feels like, a little Indiana Jones, and a little archaeology, and a little
Mm,
going on safari, and a little going on an adventure. And
mhm,
um so yeah, the moment I hear the engine, like,
mm,
you kind of just get past the bazaar, or
mhm.
tropical hideaway, and you can maybe see a boat, but you hear that, like,
Yeah.
and I just, it's like catnip, you know. I'm like, oh, we're about
Move
to
out of the
hear,
way, I'm coming.
yeah, yeah, exactly. We're about to hear, great jokes, we're about, and I hope we hear, some favorite jokes, and or I want to hear some new jokes. I love the animatronics.
Mm,
In a real sense, not talking automatons, which have been
mhm,
around since before the turn of the century. But if you're talking just animatronics, I mean, they are, some of the very first. And then, there's the famous story of, you know, um, how well they worked when they were built on the studio lot before they were trucked
mm.
down. And Harper Goff was like, "Well, yeah, that's before we put them in the water."
Right?
And
What is the
and
difference?
yeah, it's a big, and they had, so there was this constant um creation and constant fixing and constant evolution of how things worked and what things worked. And I'm thoroughly impressed by how it still looks. I mean, there's probably, I mean, this kind of goes for any ride there. Uh, well, 95% of the rides there, they're not exactly as they were when any of them opened.
Mhm.
You know, the track of the Matterhorn is, but even it's not, the way it looks exactly,
Sure.
and et cetera, et cetera. But the Jungle Cruise, I love all its, excuse me, evolutions. I love the way that it's continued. I love the way that it's persevered. I love the enthusiasm of the skippers.
Mhm.
Um, I love that it's still one of only two. I think this is right. It's one of only two attractions that are still hosted on the ride.
Mm.
Well, three. Let's see. The other one is Storybook,
I was gonna
and
say, okay, that one
and
may.
then the canoes. If is
Oh,
really
yeah,
you,
okay.
we should count that.
Yeah.
But there are very few that, you have a live person that is, you know, quote unquote on, they're
Mhm.
on stage for that time. And, nine and a half times out of 10, they're all great,
Right. Yes.
and
So
they're
so talented.
the enthusiasm and the passion is there. Um, I love, yeah, eh, I think it's relaxing, but also exciting. It's in that sense, it's like pirates. There are moments of just pure zen calm
Mhm.
floating through pirates, and yet I'm still that 9-year-old kid looking around and taking everything in,
Yeah.
as excitedly as possible. I also love that, it the Jungle Cruise really could be a completely different experience every single time that
Mm.
you go.
Yes. Yes, it really is.
From the time of day, including doing it at night,
Mhm.
you really are. I mean, allowed isn't the right word, but you look around at anything that you want to.
Mhm.
Um, Also, depending on where you sit in the boat, does change your perspective.
Mhm.
Um, it really can be a completely different attraction every single time. I could literally ride that all day. And
Yeah.
and I know that I would find new things and see new things or hear new things, um, that I and then I'm amazed that I'm not the only one.
Mhm.
For 70 years, there are people out there that still find it attractive, that they
Yeah.
still want to go on it and still want to experience that. And I just find that absolutely thrilling.
I mean, even if you were on it and you heard the exact same jokes every time, it varies depending on who is delivering them, right?
Sure.
Tone, their intonation, like how they
Mhm.
deliver that. So it could be a totally different experience even based upon that. Do you have a favorite joke?
I do.
Yeah, what is
I,
it?
I do. So it has to do with Schweitzer Falls.
Uh-huh.
And I always sort of preface this because a lot of people don't know that, when Walt built Disneyland, he was accustomed to having built film sets.
Mhm.
So it was very much a let's put our best foot forward for what the audience is going to see and what they're going to experience. And it took him a little bit of time to switch his brain over to, well, that's true, Walt, and we're all on the same page. But if you want this to still be standing in a year,
Hmm.
which most film sets are not,
Right, right.
we have to do other things. And he knew that, but he was still very frustrated about how long things were taking and how much foundation was put in, and etc.
Yeah.
And Harper Goff knew that that waterfall was going to be um, as beautiful as it was, and he designing it knowing that the boat would go behind it, or in front of it,
Hmm.
one way, and then behind it, coming on the way back. He was
Right.
like, this is going to be not just pretty to look at, but it's going to be exciting. He's like, we absolutely have to build this waterfall. And that took a tremendous amount, because water is very heavy.
Hmm.
So it took a
Hmm.
tremendous amount of concrete and steel to build it, and it went phenomenally over the little budget that they had, at all for the entire
Sure.
park. And he's putting an eighth of it into a waterfall or something, not quite, but a lot. And people came up to him and said, we don't have the money for this, we can't do it. And I'm not saying he lied outright, but Harper Goff is known to have said, we're too far past it
Hmm.
now. We have to finish it. It's
Hmm.
already, and that's the real reason we have the icon of that ride, and it is one of the icons of the parks. I mean, if you see art about the Jungle Cruise, it's typically the boat
Hmm.
in front of or behind the waterfall, and everybody knows, the backside of water, and et
Right.
cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Which is, so I love that little bit of behind the scenes. But my favorite joke is, you're coming up on the waterfall, in that quote unquote beginning part where you're in front of it,
Hmm.
and the skipper says something to the effect of, "There she is, ladies and gentlemen, the infamous Schweitzer Falls, named after famed historian Dr. Albert Falls,"
Yeah.
which I think is just one of the great play on words, one of the great leads that does the twist and then
Hmm.
pays off to that that it would have been named after Falls.
Right.
I
It's
I
completely unexpected, right? And then like
completely,
after that joke, you listen to it and you're like, yeah, and then it hits you like,
yeah,
wait a minute.
yeah. I think that's really funny every single time.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, such a good ride. Well, Michael, thank you so much for giving us a little bit deeper glimpse into who you are and kind of your Disney history. I think that's going to be a great launching point to kind of dig into your body of work,
Oh.
if we could. So, I want to talk a bit more about your book, The Year Before Disneyland, and
Mhm.
I love the framing of this book so much. And I actually heard you on a podcast quite a while ago. This was before we even met, talking about this. And I'll be honest, I cannot remember what it was. And I thought, wow, this is such a cool idea. And I had no idea. And I had never made the connections that you have made in your book and in the podcast. So, um, that idea that July 1954 to 1955 wasn't just about building the park.
Yeah.
It's really the company was also doing a lot of other impossible things all at once.
Yeah.
So, as a historian, and really a storyteller yourself, when was that moment that you realized like this single year was the story that you needed to tell?
Yeah. Thank you. That's a great question. The book started with the podcast. So, I had finished season 1 of From Out of the Past, and I knew, just from being a fan, I wanted to talk about something about Disney for
Mhm.
season 2. And there was a conversation with somebody, and the part of it that I specifically remember was, they mentioned, Tron at Walt Disney World took
Mm.
5 years to complete, while Disneyland, the original park, took one.
Right.
And this is with a friend. We were by no means arguing, and I said, well, yeah, things were different then. I mean, you on the one hand, you had Walt and or Roy literally making every decision,
Right.
whereas today it's 17 committees choosing the color of the popcorn part.
Right.
Like,
Right.
so I was like, so it's a little bit different. And I said the way that we literally construct things, building codes. I mean, it was a little bit different. So there is that aspect. I said, but do you realize, how many other things were happening
Mm.
while they built the park? And we started
Mm.
talking about that. And, I've always been very honest about talking about history, in the sense that I am aware that there are a ton of people out there that have done a tremendous amount of research on all of these subjects,
Mm-hmm.
whether you're talking about how Notre Dame was built, how the Civil War played out, or what happened in July of 1954 at Disney. The research has happened out there. So for me, whenever I want to talk about something, I really look for what's my what's
Mm.
my hook, what's my point of attack, um how can I tell whatever story, what am I bringing to the story?
Mm-hmm.
um and for this particular one, I was talking to the friend saying, do you know how much else happened at the same time? And I thought, I mean, certainly. Oh, I have my 20,000 Leagues
Yeah.
t-shirt.
Yeah.
That was really great for the radio listeners. but,
Yeah.
but I had said, I was like, do you know how much else happened during this year? I was like, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea
Mm-hmm.
came out. That was the first live action film that had been shot, quote unquote, home side after World War II.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first live action in CinemaScope. And then we were continuing to talk, and I was like, the first TV series happened in that year. Lady and the Tramp came out that year. The Davy Crockett Phenomena, which was part of the TV series, happened
Mm-hmm.
in that year, and it revolutionized, literally, I mean, even more so than the Mickey Mouse watch, which was 2 decades before. It revolutionized merchandising. They had
Right.
never experienced anything like that. And then Roy says, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could release our own feature product,
Mm-hmm.
instead of, at the time, RKO was doing all their releasing for
Right.
all their theatrical content? He's like, you know what? We should really do this on our own.
He's like, if we weren't doing enough, why don't we just
If we
add
weren't-
this tiny
yeah,
little thing on there, right? Small
yeah.
project,
The,
one or 2 days max, right?
the one thing that's currently making us money, which is our theatrical content, let's change how we do that.
Right, right.
And then I'm sure Walt, politely went in and spoke to his brother and said, with all these people that are going to show up at Disneyland, he's like, I really think that we ought to have a hotel, where people can stay. So he says,
Mhm.
I'm going to start working on that too. And the hotel, it ultimately gets partnered
Right.
with on, but the hotel. So there are these 7 major, major things that
Mhm.
are happening, um, just between us. I call it the year before Disneyland. It's officially just under 13 months,
Oh.
but that's not the
Close enough.
that's not the biggest save. Those extra 3.5 weeks, but they do these seven major things during that year. And just touching on what I was talking about before, that is on top of their day job,
Mhm.
which is their regular theatrical content.
Right.
And just in now, this really is just in about 11 months, they put out 2 documentary features and 6 shorts,
Wow.
all in, you know, tw 12 and a half months. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
year. It
Yeah.
is. And I thought, wow, I mean, has 20,000 Leagues been, Under the Sea been talked about before? Yes. Has Lady and the Tramp been talked about before? Yes. But I haven't seen somebody say, I'm going to try and lay out
Mm-hmm.
what was happening simultaneously while they also built Disneyland,
Mm-hmm.
which was the biggest undertaking the studio had ever done,
Right.
including building its own studio in Burbank,
Right.
you know, um, which was an incredible undertaking, but nowhere near what Disneyland was. And I said, ooh, that really could be my in.
Mm.
So I did it for season 2 of the podcast. And my podcast, if anybody doesn't know, and how dare you not, but is always 10 episodes. So I, having done the podcast season, I was like, ooh, there is an existing structure
Mm-hmm.
there. And I was very, very fortunate that Ben Omart with Theme Park Press contacted me and said, I heard the podcast. I think it's amazing. Have you ever thought about turning it into a book?
Yeah.
And nobody would pass, I hope, would pass that up. So I jumped at it. And so then spent, about another 6 or 8 months going back and taking this. It's the same basic framework. It's a 10 episode podcast. I kept it at 10 chapters.
Mm-hmm.
But I was able to, they're different mediums,
Mm-hmm.
so I was able to not be as singular with an episode, because I knew that, and any listeners here that haven't heard the podcast, and how dare you not,
I
but
agree. How dare you? They're gonna go listen now. Stop right now listening
but
and
if
go listen.
yeah but if no, don't stop listening to this podcast. This podcast is interesting. But if they see Lady and the Tramp and they want to jump right to that,
Mm-hmm.
God bless them. And that's that. I would too as a fan. So I knew that the podcast episode had to be a little bit more kind of self-contained.
Mm-hmm.
And I always open the podcast with, "Hey guys, remember last week we chatted about XYZ."
Right. Yep.
And at the end, I always say, "Now here's what we're going to chat about next week." Whereas in the book, I knew I could lengthen that and ease that a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
because people jump around nonfiction books as well, and that's fine. But most people would be reading it, I hope, kind of through,
Right.
and they would remember the reference in chapter 2 of when Lady and the Tramp first began, to chapter 9 when it airs in our chronological timeline. So I was able to play on the story as a whole, much more than even in the podcast. And I was, Jack Hanna was a film director for Disney. He happened to direct all of the shorts that were released in this
Mm-hmm.
year. So I was like, oh, well, I could do a little bit more of a bio on
Sure.
him.
Yep.
So that's in the book. And then there were just kind of real life things that happened between the podcast and the book, like Critter Country became Bayou Country. So I obviously updated that. Walt Disney: A Magical Life, which celebrates a lot of the same subject matter,
Right.
is now in the Opera House. So I was able to spotlight that. So as much as Disneyland and the company certainly continue to change and evolve in their own right, I did update it and try and evolve with it, even between the podcast and the book. So it's about, I don't know, 15% different,
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and the other thing I'm really sort of proud of with the book specifically is at the end, I do a pretty extensive appendices.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are so inclined, dear listener, and you want to say, oh, that's right, who were the 9 old men?
Right.
Or when was the Burbank studio opened? There is like a facts, FAQs, what I call facts and keys. So frequently asked questions, and then like key lists or key dates
Yep.
that I put in the back. So just for quick reference. And then I very intentionally did a pretty extensive index so that you can look up almost anything
Mhm.
that's in the book, and it will point you to where it takes place. So if you say, I just tell me everything that you have on Pirates of the Caribbean. I
Mhm.
know that didn't open this year, but it must be mentioned. Same thing with
Right.
Haunted Mansion. Same thing with Moana. I mean, things just get talked about
Sure.
as a Disney fan, as a Disney historian. So I wanted any fan to be able to kind of pick it up, hopefully throw it in their backpack when they're on their way to the park, and as they're walking down Main Street, be like, "Where was the Wizard of Braz?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah.
like, "Where was Upjohn Pharmacy?" Oh, that's right. It's right here. It's
Mhm.
so I'm really happy that we were able to tangibly make it hopefully a useful book, as hopefully an entertaining one.
Yeah. Oh, it most definitely is. And I really love that portion of the book. I feel like it just lends you to continue to ask questions,
Yeah.
right? And gives you a launching point for even if you weren't thinking of those questions, just going through those resources and saying, "Oh, you're right. I do need to know more about this." And it
Yeah.
gives you a good launching point. So it sounds as though a lot of research, a lot
Mm.
of deep research went into both the book and the podcasts. And I'm really curious to know, was there ever anything that you came across that was just really surprising to you?
Um, I honestly think, and it's one of the things that I think we all know, or as soon as it gets brought up, we all go, "Oh, well, of course that's true."
Mm,
But it really sort of hit home for me, particularly during this year, and then learning what happened before and certainly what has come after. But it's a single word, and it's not really a spoiler, but it's the first word of the book proper, and it's the perseverance.
yeah.
It is how much the company and Walt and Roy, as these two brothers, persevered through all of the seemingly unending success,
Mm,
which didn't end. I mean, yes, they're still around and they're still beloved, and one thing certainly succeeded into another. But when Oswald happened, he was a success,
hmm
and then he was taken away from them, and they persevered and they came up with Mickey.
hmm
And the shorts, at a certain point, Walt said these are not going to last forever. I mean, tw 20 years ahead of them not lasting anymore. He was prescient enough to say this was not going to always be here,
hmm
and he perseveres himself into Snow White. Snow White is a huge success. They put all their money back into themselves, which they had always done and still
Right.
do to this day. And they built themselves a studio. Building themselves a studio put them right back into red in the books. Uh,
Yep.
and then they get hit by several kind of tidal waves right in a row with World War II,
hmm
where Pinocchio and Fantasia, Bambi, Dumbo are not just considered classics today, they were critically acclaimed when they came out. Most people kind of forget that because they didn't make as much money as Snow White did, but they were held in pretty high regard. Fantasia was enough of a critical success that they were immediately thinking about doing a sequel
hmm
at that time, back in the 40s. But World War II just completely tidal wave
Right.
them. And they had to persevere through that. And then there's Disneyland, and then there's any number of the seven big things that we just chatted about. There is this sense of, or I think most people, and I think myself included, even though you hear that and you go, well, like, yeah, of course, every company has their ups and downs. Certainly an artistic company, but Disneyland was never just sort of surfing the top of Parnassus, sprinkling magic down on us mere mortals.
Mm-hmm.
It was literally persevering as a company, as an artistic voice, as uh, a cutting paychecks to their employees.
Yeah.
Was hard work all the way through. And we see things lately. I mean, you can look at, pick any movie. John Carter on Mars. Okay, it didn't perform as well. The last Star Wars movie wasn't as critically acclaimed as XYZ. Every company goes through it to this day. Did they do $61 billion in media income just in 2025? Yes. Is that an insane amount of money?
Wow.
Yes. But they're still, yeah, but they're still, putting their money right back into themselves. They have projects ongoing or starting projects in every park in the world right now. They're continuing to put out theatrical content. The Imagineers are still doing breakthrough um, um, technical as well as creative things.
Mm-hmm.
They are not a company that just says we can put out the next Blu-ray of Cinderella and call it a day.
Right.
They can do that, and they do that because they go in and they say, oh, we're going to do a real um you know uh, um like refurbishment of the movie, and we're going to fine tune it and clean it up and fix some, not change things, but fix things and go back to an original film print and put it out prettier
Mm-hmm.
because they can, which is also investing in themselves.
Right.
um so coming out of it, you know, I think a lot of people probably see Disney as a really successful company that said, maybe we'll try out this theme park for fun. And
Mm-hmm.
it was a side project, or it was like Walt's pet project, the way that his Carolwood train, was. It
Right. Right.
it was a hobby. And it really wasn't. There was a period they were literally pushing all their chips into the center of the table. And had Disneyland not worked, the company would have closed.
Right.
So this conscious idea of Disney persevering,
Mm.
I think, really came out of doing a deep dive into that year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Gosh, that's so good. That's one of my favorite things that I respect the most about Walt Disney himself and just the company in general is that perseverance. And it's really that belief in if you believe it, you can find a way to make it happen. And not letting the challenges take you over, right? I mean, gosh,
Yeah.
there were so many times in his life and his career that would have just taken anybody out, right? All right,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
done. Like this isn't it. And the
Way
tenacity.
before the park.
Oh
I mean,
yeah, yeah.
I
Like
mean, many,
very,
many
very early
times.
on, right? Like just the tenacity that he has. And so I love that. That's such a great that was very unexpected, but boy, that was good. So I would love to know though, through all of this deep research, was there any specific story that you absolutely loved and or discovered and you loved, but it just didn't make its way into the book for whatever reason?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are a lot in storytelling, as I'm sure you've heard this phrase. It's called "kill your darlings."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Which is you have a line of dialogue or a character or a scene or a whole plot line of a story that you are absolutely in love with, and as you're writing it, you say, "My God, this is the reason I'm writing this. I can tell you right now, this is going to make the book, or
Yeah.
this is going to make the TV show, or whatever." And you get into the editing and or while you're writing or something, and you say, yeah, that just does
Hmm.
not fit the story as a whole. It kills the flow somehow, or it's too much of a tangent. And as you said, and thank you for mentioning how much I love the stories beside the story.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love championing the little guys, you know, of old Hollywood and of Disney. I don't think that, somebody like, um, I'm trying to think of like a Raleigh Crump, let's
Hmm.
say, is certainly not a little guy to Disney fans and
Right.
Disney studiers, but there are a lot of people out there who consider themselves Disney fans who love the parks and love the movies who don't know Raleigh Crump.
Right.
So I say, okay, I want to talk a little bit about him or Mary Blair or Ruth
Mhm.
Shellhorn or Harriet Burns, any number of people. So there are, oh boy, so there are a lot of stories. Um, huh.
It's like asking you to pick your favorite child, right?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think because the other thing is, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying before, was a lot of some of those moments that did not make it into the podcast. I used the longer format of the
Mhm.
book to put in,
Sure.
so that always helps. Um, I I will say that I wish that I could have spent more time on some of the lesser known um, places in
Mm.
in the park when they
Uh-huh.
opened and done a much more of a deep dive on like for instance, there's a number of individual shops along
Mhm.
Main Street
Yep.
that I would have loved to have done more of a deep dive on each of them. They're all mentioned, excuse me, and they're all mentioned where they were, and there's a little bit of a bio on all of them, but I would have loved to have done more on that. I would have loved to have done more on on the Hall of Aluminum in Tomorrowland, or
Mm.
the original um where Bengal Barbecue is now, was
Mhm.
a little place called the Cantina
Uh-huh.
when the park opened. I would have loved to have kind of done a deep dive on that and exactly what it was serving, what they were selling in the bazaar, what they were,
Right.
there are these moments, and a lot of people don't know, for instance, that Adventureland used to stop. It was a cul-de-sac,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
basically where the tree is now.
Mhm.
And so I wish I'd maybe taken the time to maybe like work with even an artist and done little maps so
Mm.
that because so that people could actually kind of see
Mhm.
the shops along Main Street instead of me just kind of talking about it.
Mhm.
So as much as I try to touch on those 7 major things that happened alongside the building of Disneyland, I do talk about the building of Disneyland,
Mhm.
hopefully spotlighting the little guys like the shops along Main Street and, you know, the the uh the small eateries that were in each land, the chicken plantation house
Yep.
that was in Frontierland. But the making of Disneyland, the story of that is sort of parlayed down
Mhm.
just enough because it's like, okay, now here's what's happening over in Adventureland. Don't forget about this because remember Walt splitting his time between working with Harper Goff on what the Jungle Cruise looks like and what the squid in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea looks like.
Right. Right.
So I'm always trying to say here are all these things that are happening simultaneously. But I think like any Disney fan, I would have loved to have spent more time. I would have loved to have spent more time on the squid.
Right.
in,
Right.
in,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
but it's like, or on Lady and the Tramp. But I try to take it from Joe Grant all the way to release over its 7 chapters or whatever it is. But I also needed to fit in everything that's happening
A
in
lot of
those.
other things. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of like, oh, I wish I'd spent more time on that,
Yeah.
I think.
Gosh, I don't know, Michael. I feel like we have maybe the inklings of another book. Even just like those stores on Main Street, I feel you. Just doing this podcast and the research. I mean, you just come across so much, and I'm like, what can I give you that will kind of wet your whistle right?
Yeah.
And like get you interested enough and teach you something new, but also not completely overwhelm you. And also, we don't have 5 hours to do this podcast, but
Yeah.
I don't know, Theme Park Press, if you're listening, I think we have another book in the makings here for Michael. I would read that.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a wonderful phrase, and I hope I'm quoting it correctly, that Imagineers actually use. And I think it's swimmers. I think it's swimmers or soakers, swimmers, and deep divers,
Okay.
or floaters, swimmers, and deep divers. And basically, the point is that when they are designing an attraction, or a restaurant or anything that's themed, they have to design it so that the people at the very, very top level who are Disney fans and know a little bit about
Hmm.
Moana, but don't know a lot, they enjoy it as well. And
Sure.
then the second level are the swimmers, and you want to give them a little bit more and a little bit, more of a wink, wink and a nudge, nudge. And then you have your deep divers,
Right.
for which they put in Easter eggs, in which they put in and they do that for everything they work on, which I think
Mhm.
is fascinating by itself.
Yeah.
But I tried to do that with talking about Disney, so that, to your point, and it's 100% accurate. You want it to be fun for somebody that just says, "Oh, I remember going to the park with my
Hmm.
family, and I love watching Little Mermaid with my daughter." Hopefully, they learn a little bit more, study a little bit more on
Sure.
their end, and learn a little something.
Yeah.
But then you also kind of want to be like, I can't tell, I can't spotlight too heavily that Walt's apartment was above the firehouse, because every deep diver knows that.
Right. Right.
So is there a hook? Is there an in that I can be like, oh, but did you know this?
Right.
And we talk a little bit about like Emil Curry, who helped design it. Can we talk about Lillian's, Walt's wife's,
Hmm.
input on the apartment proper? Can we talk,
Hmm.
so that you are sort of hitting those different levels of fandom for
Right.
everybody?
Right. Yeah, and that's really interesting. It had me thinking about, we just finished our New Orleans Square series, and I got a
Which was
lot.
excellent.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You get through all of those and it's so sad to move on to the next. And for me, it's always, did I do it justice? But I got a lot of feedback with people wanting to know more about Club 33.
Mhm.
And even a lot of that information that I was able to share, people didn't know because I think it's still such like an elusive experience, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's been on my mind too of like, oh man, do we need to do like a full separate episode of just really digging in a little bit more? But I digress.
Yeah.
Maybe you
Oh,
could spend eons and eons, and I know you and I are both fans of the podcast Distory and
oh
the
yeah.
work that Kate and Kirk do, and I love that podcast. But like you said, it's not for the floaters or the swimmers,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
It is for like the deep sea trench divers.
Oh yeah.
Just
Yeah,
the level of detail and history that there's a certain type of crazy that really would get excited about that.
totally. No, I mean, absolutely. I thought your New Orleans series was excellent.
Well, thank you.
And it was a four-parter.
Hmm.
And as you know, like you scratched the surface, and
Yeah.
you would have loved to have done 12 parts on that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so don't quote me, but I think the distory on it must be Big Thunder or something. I think it's like 33 parts or something.
Yeah, they
I
had
mean,
some, that
when you
one,
say they deep dive, it's
they I mean,
it's
I'm here
amazing.
for every second of it. I cannot get enough. And I think that
Totally.
one and then Tower of Terror was pretty close up there.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
crazy.
yeah, yeah, but
But
it's
it's
there.
fascinating. And I also recommend, if at all, you can absolutely listen to that as a podcast. That's what I do. But occasionally, if you're so inclined, do check out their YouTube, because they show images.
Yes. Yes, they
So
do. Yep.
so when they say like, "Oh, look at this old, drawing from so and so on such and such," they show
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It really is. I used to be able when they were doing the live streams on TikTok,
Yeah.
getting to
Yeah.
check those out. And so, it just really has me thinking about uh, talking about me for a second.
Yeah.
When like the parks really started to come alive for me when I started to learn more about the history. And
Mm.
that is when I started to transition into this. It's not just a place where I'm going for entertainment, but I really feel like I'm living in the parks. Like I am getting to experience the park right alongside the people who created it,
Mhm.
by learning that history. And that's, again, one of the things that I love so much about the Distery podcast is there's still so much more to learn. And even, just being there last week of, hey, you know, I just learned this, this, and this, and the park, I'm getting to experience it in a new way every single time. So I'm really curious about how, through all of your research and writing with the book and the podcast, how has it changed your experience, or how you experience the park?
Yeah, I mean, like I kind of said before, I love that I can still click my brain
Mm.
between that I love and want to study it, or I'm looking for something, and or I can, click it back to I'm 9 and just enjoying it, which is
Mm.
great. Um, but there are, and certainly, having, an iPhone in your pocket, or, you know there's I just did this yesterday. I saw a tag on a piece of luggage. It's in that the stagecoach over on the trail from
Yep.
like Frontierland into Galaxy's Edge,
Yeah.
and there's a tag on a piece of luggage on it, and it said to, don't quote me, Jason Chandler something.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I did not know who that is. I still don't. So I took a picture of that tag because I was like, I need to know why that says that.
Yeah.
Because to your point, knowing a little bit more about the history and whatnot, you learn that nothing in the park is
I,
accidental
yeah.
or just a throwaway. So now I'm like, is that an Imagineer? Is that a real person from the past? Is that because we believe, and I think it's true, that Walter Knott from Knott's gifted that coach
Uh-huh.
to Walt. So I'm like, is that a Knott's Berry Farm reference? Did this Chandler person work there? Like,
Yeah.
so but then I took a picture of it, and I can't wait to get into that, early next week.
I'm excited for
But then
you
I
to
but
dig
then
in. Yeah,
yeah,
that was
but then I
something
went,
I actually recently discovered myself when I was in the park back in February. So here's where it stemmed from. I wanted to post a trivia question on DL Weekly, and I really wanted to stump them.
yes.
So I asked a trivia question specifically about that tag, like who was this
Oh my
person? Why are
gosh.
they significant? And at the time, I had no idea. So it led me down the same. So I'm excited for you to do the research because I did the same thing. I was like, oh, who
Amazing.
is this? I got to know everything. It's really cool. It's really cool.
Oh, good.
Mhm.
The inmates have taken over the asylum.
Exactly, exactly. But I mean, it's to your point of, if you just stay curious,
Yeah.
and I've said this a million times in this podcast, nothing, and you just said it, is ever done accidentally. Every single thing is done with intentionality, and it's things like that. Um, and you could go down rabbit hole after rabbit hole just by that one luggage tag.
Yeah.
And it adds more of the story to where you're at. It's
Yeah.
just mind blowing. It's amazing.
Yeah. So, and I love that. And I think that's great about Disney, about anything. I mean,
Mhm.
you could pick it about Robin Hood or
Right.
Oppenheimer. I mean, it doesn't pick your niche, and and yes, there are people that have written a book that you're reading and got you excited. And you
Hmm.
may decide to write a book and that's going to hopefully get somebody else excited. There's always somebody that invented the chair, and then there's somebody who's going to make a more comfortable chair. And
Mm.
they're going to stand on the shoulder of the giant before them. And hopefully
Hmm.
somebody stands on your shoulders and goes on. The fun thing that I love about Disney is that there is always something more to learn.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
am constantly learning more things. But one of the things that between the podcast and the book, and I sort of make a joke about it at the beginning of the book in the foreword, is that I realized that I had where the gas station was at the Disneyland Hotel. I had it off by about a half a block,
Uh-huh.
but I was so excited and so proud that I had figured that out. And to most people, they'd be like, "You knew where it was," and I'm like, "You don't understand." I I thought it was about a half a block south,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and I fixed that and I learned it, and it was merely a matter of they had adjusted where the address
Mhm.
of it. Well, that pushed out and it changed and blah blah blah. But I was like, there is always, if you are a fan of, this goes back to what we were saying right at the very beginning. If you're a fan of something, you are always going to know more about it than you know, if you maybe asked Walt, "Do you remember where the gas station was at the Disneyland Hotel?" He'd probably be like, "No, I do not."
Right,
Like,
right.
and I used it 30 times. I used it 100 times, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it was right near the hotel. But the fan will be able to say, I can give you the GPS coordinates of it, or
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can tell
yeah.
you what color it was."
Mhm.
Um,
Square footage.
yeah, exactly. And I love other like yourself and like any fan that does more than just watch the movie. I
Mhm.
love chatting with them because inevitably you will learn something
Mhm.
or share something, or you'll be like, just like this luggage tag. You'll be
Mhm.
like, "Oh my god, I just did the same thing.
Yeah,
I passed it and I was like, who is that? That must be somebody."
yeah.
Um, and it's those really, really little things that can continue sparking the biggest interest, you know, uh, because you might say, "Oh, I know that, Buzz Lightyear is where Circarama used to be." But it's like, well, what was Circarama?
Mhm.
Or what, what was there then? Or why was, the House of Tomorrow, like, where was that exactly? Because we
Mhm.
know that it's just either geographically or historically or creatively or sometimes just technically, um, there's a wonderful thing. I think it was George Lucas who asked Akira Kurosawa about a shot in a movie.
Mm.
He said, "Oh, how, why did you, this is my favorite shot in the whole movie. And can you tell me what you were thinking when you framed it just this way so that the horse came into view and blah, blah, blah." And Kurosawa, without missing a beat, said, "If the frame was an inch to the left, I would have seen the gas station. And if the frame was an inch to the right, you'd have seen the crew." You know,
That's simple.
he goes, I was literally working with what I had
Yeah.
on that day.
I wish it were more profound than
I
that, but
wish it
there
was more profound than that. And I love finding that out. Like something that you think went weeks in Walt's mind about the placement of something or the color of something may be as simple as we had extra red paint.
Right,
And
right,
we were running out of money and time, and there was no way I wasn't going to have this there opening day.
right.
So here we go.
Right,
You
right.
know,
Oh, that's so good. So we're gonna stick on the theme of swimmers or floaters. Hold on.
yeah,
Floaters,
exactly. I think, yeah,
swimmers, deep
it's
divers,
something. Yeah.
something like that. So you know, you've experienced the park in many different angles.
Mm,
And so, what is some advice or tips or ideas or thoughts that you have for listeners who want to start getting more out of their visits? Not just simply go on rides, but to
yeah.
actually start experiencing. These are our people who maybe it's their first time, maybe they've only ever been a couple of times, but like, what would your tips be for them?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you nailed it just with the ride comment is don't just rush to
Mm.
the ride that you want to go on. Um, Maybe if it's rope drop and you really want to go on that ride, sure, right, rush to it. But then slowly walk back. Or if you don't, if you know, like, oh, I would like to, if you're in Tomorrowland and you say, I really want to go on Haunted Mansion. Like that's a really beautiful, but it's a decent walk.
Mhm.
say. So you say, you know, I, I would suggest just pay attention to
Mm.
everything that you're going to see during that walk.
Mm-hmm.
And remember that we call it a park because half of what Walt wanted out of building Disneyland was 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 not your typical amusement park.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted it to be clean, he wanted it to be safe, he wanted it to be pretty, he wanted it to be a place that children and adults could enjoy together.
Mm-hmm.
So just enjoy the grounds. You don't need to know that Ruth Shelahorn designed those specifically, or John Hench's work, or you can get there if you
Mm-hmm.
want, but just like look at the trees.
Mm.
Look at how the water from the castle moat goes, underneath the bridge to Frontierland,
Mm-hmm.
up, and then continues into that the river that's underneath now the Adventureland Treehouse,
Mm-hmm.
that we know now connects to the rivers of America.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it always has, but it still connects,
Right.
beneath that Pirates Walkway. Um, just if you walk by the Adventureland Treehouse, walk up it.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're on your way to Haunted Mansion, there's rarely a line.
Right.
It is beautiful. It
Mm-hmm.
gives you amazing views. Um, walk into the bazaar and just walk around and
Mm-hmm.
see how it's decorated. One of my favorite YouTubers is Chris Provost.
Mm-hmm.
If you know, like,
Mm-hmm.
I think it goes by Park Pass, but I always say Provost Park Pass. He has a great line that I've consciously taken on, which is always, whenever you're in somewhere, particularly, look up,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
we don't always look up at things, but
Yeah.
particularly inside, there is a lot of decoration and theming,
Yeah.
imagineering theming that's happening up there. Look in the windows of shops for stuff that they have there. When you're in the queues, the queues are as specifically themed
Mm-hmm.
as the ride itself. It's an attraction, all encompassing.
Right. Right.
Um, so I, even my family and I always say, one of these days, because it's never happened, we really kind of don't want to do a single quote unquote ride,
Mm,
but we
yeah.
just kind of want to walk around and really spend time. And I thought about it again because of your New Orleans series,
Yeah.
but just walk around it.
Yep.
Look at how, because say for instance the water runoff stain from the drains in New Orleans Square.
Mm-hmm.
Those, if Disney wanted those clean,
They
first of all, they'd be cleaned.
right.
Second of all, they painted those. Those are there to look old. Those are there,
Wow.
those are there to look like it's New Orleans of the 20s, 30s,
Uh-huh.
40s, whatever. There, if you're seeing rust, it's probably not rust. If you're, if you're seeing, like I said, age, if you're seeing, like really kind of look at the cobwebs in Haunted Mansion,
Yes.
or
Yeah. Yeah.
look at the costumes. I've started to do this lately, is specifically the costumes, Alice Davis costumes in Pirates.
Yes.
They're unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you can, and I love the rides. They are thrilling, or they are beautiful, or they are nostalgic.
Right.
I'm a huge fan of nostalgia in general. Uh, uh, so sometimes I just get caught up and I'm enjoying the ride,
Sure.
which the 9-year-old in me loves, and my 9-year-old loves. But sometimes I really do try and just stop and look at the park as a place that you can just walk through,
Mm-hmm.
and have a popcorn, and just walk Main Street.
Yeah.
You can spend, easily 2 hours
Mm-hmm.
on Main Street just walking around,
Yep.
go down Center Street and look at the windows and look at it's not just the wonderful, honorees on the windows, but quite often you'll be like, oh, that's a dentist shop. I
Yeah.
never knew that. Or that this building is supposed to be a hotel, or
Mhm.
this building is supposed to be a millinery, or whatever it is. But you can just appreciate the theming of the park as a park,
Mhm.
as just a place to walk around, that is, the phrase I love now is a living museum.
Yes, that's good.
So there are parts that are preserved, and there are parts that continue to evolve.
Mhm.
And I think they've done a wonderful job of sort of pedestaling the one, but not getting too sort of religiously attached to
Sure.
it as a museum piece, where they can say this can be changed, or this can
Uh-huh.
be evolved and rebuilt or designed. Or And I love, just yesterday I noticed, because I think you've probably seen on social media lately, that they had uncovered the original Carnation Company sign
Oh,
for
yes.
Carnation Cafe.
Yes.
When I was there yesterday, the scrim was officially down
Oh,
from
okay.
Carnation Cafe, and the sign was still there. And
Mm.
I am very, very hopefully excited that they are going to keep it. They're actually going to
Yeah,
allow it to remain.
that would be really
So
cool.
so things like that, just they're uncovering history, but still, and David at Fresh Baked is one of the things I love about him is his always spotlighting. Disney doesn't have to keep, say, Main Street looking as beautiful as it does, but they
Mhm.
do.
Right.
Once a year they do a paint and polish, and they
Mhm.
keep it looking as beautiful as they can. And they'll drain the water on such and such, they'll fix it, they'll repaint it, they'll clean whatever it is. They'll do a paint and polish on almost every attraction every
Mhm.
24 months. It's a cycle, as
Yep.
as
They
a
have a
hundred
spreadsheet somewhere.
as 100 acres is going to take time. They will continue to keep these things looking beautiful, and they really still do.
Mhm.
And sometimes I just like to appreciate how the park looks just walking around, or
Mhm.
just get on it's a ride, quote unquote, but just get on the Mark Twain
Yeah.
and just enjoy everything that you're seeing as that goes around. It's all of 10 minutes, whatever
Yeah.
it is, but it lets you breathe. It lets you look at, so if you're lucky, you see the train,
Mhm.
you get to wave at people, you get to see animatronics, you get to just experience, you get to hear that wonderful whoosh of the steam engine. Like, that is an amazing attraction.
Mhm. I agree. I agree. That and the sailing ship Columbia, and even
Yeah.
the Main Street vehicles. I mean,
Mhm.
they don't get enough
Mhm.
credit either of just sit and like
Yep.
look around.
Yep.
And experience the ambiance. No, that's all a really good point. Like there's so much to take in, and I think you're really bringing out the point of there is something for everyone. Like everyone has an entry point. And if you're
Yeah.
not someone that can do the big crazy rides or, for whatever reason or what, there's
Yeah.
still something to keep you entertained and busy and enjoying your time together with
Yeah.
whomever you're there with, right?
Absolutely.
So, what about for those deep divers? What are some or what's a tip that you would give them for seeing the park with fresh eyes? Like people, who know that park in and out. How might they view it with fresh eyes?
There's a great new book called The Year Before Disneyland. Um,
Yes.
Pick that up and go through. No, I would say, to your point, you've made all my points for me. You've done all the heavy lifting. It's great, but I think you nailed it when you said, the more that you know about something, the more that you know about the history of something, the more you're going to appreciate it.
Mhm.
So if and again, like I said, somebody has already built the chair. I was just looking for my chair. I was just looking for how I could either make it more comfortable or better, just whatever. If your favorite attraction is Space Mountain, amazing.
Mhm.
There is a tremendous amount of history about Space Mountain. Most people
Mhm.
don't that it opened in Disney World first.
Mm-hmm.
Any amount of info that you can find on any part of it. If your favorite attraction is Guardians of the Galaxy, you'll find out that it was Tower of Terror. Maybe you'll find out that it which other parks it is in the rest of the world, how it was designed.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're an engineering brain. There is a tremendous amount of technical, genuine prowess that
Mm-hmm.
goes into the simple little things that are happening,
Right.
that you would be amazed at. I mean, I'm lucky to have a couple of friends in Imagineering, and occasionally they'll just say, "Oh, I can't tell you XYZ or whatever." He goes, "But we did it again. We just
Mm-hmm.
figured out how to, do something that we had been working on for 2 years." And I'm
That's
like,
cool.
and that blows my mind that
Yeah.
there something that we may not even see for another 5 years. They're working on and they're inventing and
Mm-hmm.
they're figuring out the technology of it. If your thing is food, look back on the kind of food they've had there and how they're reinventing things. Like when the
Mm-hmm.
churro became a staple.
Yeah. Yeah.
The history of the Dole Whip is fascinating. I mean, there's a lot about, if we're just talking even just Disneyland, forget the media, the films, the whatever.
Right.
Within the park, because of its tangible three dimensionality. Is that a word? It is now.
It is now. Mm-hmm.
It is, you can experience that from and multiple points of view, as a thrill ride seeker, as a foodie, as a engineering brain, as a designer. I mean, the stuff that one of my favorite shows is Hey Bricky,
Oh
and
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mark Bricky, because he's really saying, we all know Space Mountain, but have you ever looked at this? And let
Mm-hmm.
me tell you the history of this, and let me tell you why this is significant, or what his take on the keyhole and his take on some of the design stuff. I find fascinating, um, because no matter how many times you've seen the facade of Small World, maybe you'll learn more about Mary Blair, or maybe
Yes.
you'll learn more about the World's Fair.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you said, it's a rabbit hole that I think if you are a fan at all, you become a super fan really quickly. It's
I mean,
so
there is a plethora of niches to get into.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, if you're going for your first or your 100th time, just take a moment and look around. Um, and especially if you're a history fan at all. I mean, this gets said a lot, but it's another thing, just like the Perseverance, to keep very, very conscious. It's the only park that Walt walked in.
Mhm.
So it's the only one that he very specifically said, I want it to look like this, and
Right.
this is the experience, and this is how long Main Street should be, and this is how. And yes, he had you know, um, his own things that he couldn't do because of time or money,
Right.
his own restraints. Yes, I mean, is it exactly the way he saw it in his mind? Probably not. But we know that it was designed as best he could do, from what I like to call his taking us into
Mhm.
one of his stories.
Mhm.
Him giving us this opportunity to literally walk into one of his fantasies.
Yeah.
And that's, yes, it's nostalgic, and yes, it's beautiful, but I genuinely find it fascinating to think he stood at the bottom of the train steps and looked at the castle and thought, okay, this
Mhm.
should be a tree. This should be
Mhm.
this color. What about this? How about
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
it's it's amazing to think that, um, it was designed as a an upscale amusement park. It invented the theme park,
Mhm.
and you can appreciate it from so many different viewpoints at the same time. And hopefully that only evolves. It doesn't change from when you're 9 to 90.
Right, right. That's so good. Now, Michael, I know after our conversation, people are going to they're going to be jonesing, like salivating. Give us more, Michael. Where can you tell us exactly the best place to buy your book, The Year Before Disneyland, and subscribe to your podcast, and where else can they find you? Because you do a lot of other amazing work on all of the socials. So give
I
the people what
try.
they want.
Thank, thank you. That's
They want more Michael. Give it to them. Where can they find you?
Thank you. That's so kind. The book you can find through Theme Park Press and or Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And I do hope everyone listening checks out the podcast. It's From Out of the Past, because I think it's fun, but I also tried to make it every season is a different topic, again, for both newcomers and deep divers alike. Season 2 is the Disney season. We're currently in the middle, essentially, of season 3, which is all about Lucille Ball.
Yes.
So it's entertainment and it's classic Hollywood, but it really is significantly different each season. As for social media, I guess I'm most active on Instagram and TikTok. Those are both at Holland_Imaginarium. And the podcast has its own Instagram, which is at From Out of the Past Podcast.
That's great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to put links to all of those too in the show notes. And I think what I want to do, if you're all right with it, I would like to put the link from your publisher themselves, Theme Park Press, just as a way to support, independent publishers. And I just highly encourage everyone, if you can, go buy the book from them.
Sure. Absolutely. Please do. And they have an Instagram as well, which is at theme_park_press.
Yes, they do. And I'll add them too. So, well, Michael, this has just been such a wonderful afternoon getting to talk with you. I feel like we could talk for like 3 or 4 more hours, but I want to respect your time. I don't have anything else to do, but so this has been so great, and I really hope that you will come back on again in the future.
I would love to. Thank you so much. This has been a genuine pleasure.
Yay. Well, thank you. Oh my goodness, friends. What a conversation. Michael, thank you so much for being here today, for sharing your time, your stories, and your incredible love of Disney history with all of us. I could have talked to you for another 3 hours, seriously. Make sure you go pick up The Year Before Disneyland, follow along with From Out of the Past podcast, and check out everything happening over at Holland Imaginarium. I'll have all of those links for you in the show notes so they're easy to find. And listeners, thank you for being here, for listening all the way through, and for being the reason I get to have amazing conversations like this one. It means more to me than you really know. Now, before I let you go, I have to tell you what's coming next, because we are starting a brand new series, and I am so excited. Next episode, we are setting off into Bayou Country. That's right. We are leaving New Orleans Square behind and drifting just a little further down the river into one of the most atmospheric, story-rich corners of Disneyland. We've got so much to explore together, from the attractions to the little details you might have walked past 100 times without noticing, and I simply cannot wait to share it with you. So, make sure you're following or subscribed wherever you listen to your podcast so that first Bayou Country episode lands right in your feed the moment it drops. Now, until next time, keep the magic alive, keep the memories close, and as always, I'm wishing you a great, big, beautiful tomorrow. Bye-bye.